You might not see the movement right now, but your 3D reality is lagging behind for a reason. What seems like really slow movement is all about a change in focus and perspective. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. We are talking about what movement might look like and seem like your current perspective on movement in your 3D reality. I know obviously that's the part people get tripped up on and maybe frustrated with, and that seems like a block on your journey to manifestation. So I'm going to talk about what actually is going on with your movement, why it feels slow, how to push past that, change your perspective as I just highlighted, so that you can understand this is the best way to think about it. This is the assumption to go in with, because as you know, what you think about something does shape and determine how you experience it in your reality. If you're checking your 3D reality for proof, then that's the effect, not the actual cause. So the cause would be your own thoughts, and then the effect would be what you experience as a result in your 3D reality. So what you experience after in your 3D has a direct correlation and is the effect of what your thoughts have built up to. Where's your dominant focus? It doesn't mean that you have to think the exact same thing a million times, but where has your focus been? Have you been analyzing, focusing on the 3D, stressing and worrying about that? Or have you been focusing on the end result, applying repetition, doing your mental diet when the opposing thoughts do come up? That's usually the difference. So what's holding that old story and the old version of the 3D in place is reaffirming it by obsessively, constantly checking, constantly reacting. And the reactions themselves are not the issue, but if you are still non-stop reacting, then you're wavering. You're having hot and cold internal experiences. That's not the way you're supposed to think, just in terms of making progress, right? So if you say, I've been doing it for months and nothing's improved and you've just had a really, really difficult time, you're not in the right mindset. You probably haven't been putting in the right effort. It's not supposed to be this continuous journey that just drags on and your thoughts constantly drag you down. Like if you're still experiencing the exact same thing internally, not even getting into the external movement or 3D circumstances, then that usually means you're obsessively checking and reacting. You're not catching yourself. You're not applying the self-awareness needed. It's holding that old version of your 3D in place because you keep going back to it. You keep reminding yourself and saying, this is what I'm looking at in my current 3D. The cycle is that you're going to look for proof or look to your 3D reality for validation, for example, and then you're going to think from that mindset of lack, as in of not having it, of reminding yourself, I literally don't have it. You cannot affirm from lack, as I've made a video about, but you can think from lack, where you are thinking as if you literally don't have it, right? You're thinking the negative thoughts from the old way of thinking, a normal, non-manifestation way of thinking where everything is just black and white and you take life as it is in front of you, and then it leads to a delay. You're not going to create this consistent, fast movement that you want to experience if you keep looking to the 3D, reacting, taking that as, proof and validation of saying, okay, well, this is just how it is. SP hasn't changed. This relationship is not coming together. This change in my life and this goal that I'm working on, it's not coming together because my 3D is showing me this. Or I keep looking back at the communication and it's still stuck on this. You keep reaffirming and showing yourself what you don't want. So you need to be able to focus on the end result consistently, observe it in your mind, which in quantum terms is what actually brings it in. The observation is holding your focus and attention to something that's already real, something that can be in physical existence in your reality, and you focus on it mentally. You observe it through your thoughts, through your visualization. Mentally, your brain is holding on to this idea that this is literally in the moment what I have now. This is what I'm literally experiencing right now. So observing it, focusing on it, that is what is going to shift your desired reality into becoming your actual experienced reality. And then when you get stuck in this phase of that mental resistance, whether it's a bad day, a little moment of spiraling, I know it's difficult to pick yourself up and have that motivation and determination, but when you get focused on being stuck, it might seem like that's objective and that it's just really difficult, but everything can change in a second. A shift in your emotional state, a shift in your thoughts, finding that little nugget of wisdom, whether it's my video or something online or just a intuitive lesson that you learn or something that you suddenly realize, and picking yourself back up, it's pushing past that mental resistance. It's only because of that temporary mental resistance, because it's never going to be permanent, that it might seem like you're stuck right right now, or that movement is stuck or delayed, but it's not objective, it's not permanent. It's all about shifting your focus and your perspective on what's actually going on and not looking to the 3D constantly. So if you really are going through a period of maybe no movement or no visible changes and things feel kind of stagnant, that is probably the middle period, kind of the midway point of your manifestation as you're pushing past those hot and cold hurdles, which is normal to experience. It doesn't mean that you failed or something's deeply wrong. You just push past it mentally when it does show up, and you don't get stuck. And it's like running a race, right? So if I use this analogy of someone running a marathon, and someone's holding up a weird banner or a discouraging sign, you don't stop and read it and start arguing back with and saying, oh my gosh, wait, why is this banner here? What's going on? Like, I'm trying to get to the end race, but this just showed up. You don't do that. You glance at it and you keep pushing past it. You keep persisting. A month from now, I would say that the subscribers who caught my advice videos early will actually be ahead. You don't want to miss out on that manifestation video that I upload that actually answers the manifestation questions that you had. So make sure to click that button right below the screen to subscribe, and the notification bell to turn on all notifications, so that every time I upload, you can see what I upload as soon as it's up. Get there first. I usually reply to comments pretty quickly and have all your questions answered much quicker. Your 3D reality also just naturally has a little bit of a delay. So like I said, it's like running a marathon. You're at a comfortable, balanced pace. You're not trying to rush. You're not too slow. You're just keeping your balance throughout the race. You're not going to get caught up on, okay, why is this not showing up? Why does it currently look like this around me? There's naturally a 3D reality time lag, as people call it, that simply is following on from what's going on internally. It's not an instant mirror reflection, like when you're looking at your own actual mirror reflection, and obviously you're instantly seeing that's you in this current moment, in this current millisecond. There is a bit of a delay. So it's almost like, for another analogy, because I used to do these all the time in my videos, putting on a movie in the cinema, right? It's not that you say, okay, we're going to watch this and it instantly starts playing. You have to put the film reel in and set everything up and get the screen ready. And if you leave after 1 second of not seeing the screen, you're going to miss when the movie actually starts playing. And the great thing is that your 3D doesn't have a choice. It literally has no choice but to reflect and follow on from wherever your focus goes. What you decide where your focus and attention is, that's what it has to start reflecting. It doesn't get to decide or say, well, this is just how society is. This is just how life is. So this is what's going to show up. It follows on from what you tell it. And that all gets decided, obviously, with your own thoughts. So as your own subconscious mind is rewiring, all the, do they say the cogs? The cogs are turning. Everything's going on in your subconscious mind. It's obviously subconscious, so it's not a conscious thought that you can recognize and react to and analyze. It's all going on kind of in a more deeper rooted place, but with your repetition, your consistency, and persisting despite what you see in your 3D, that's how it's going to rewire itself. And then that internal shift is what creates this reflection in your actual 3D. So yes, that's to say there is sometimes a natural delay. It doesn't mean that you're not creating movement, but the first point was to warn you guys to not get caught up in the old way of thinking and let that just rule and dictate what you assume and what you're seeing. But then also to understand that sometimes we all just experience a little bit of a time delay with our 3D reality. Something interesting that I have spoken about in many videos ago is your RAS, your reticular activating system. I used to talk about this a lot, and it's really interesting the way the brain works, where it will pick up on and filter what's going on around you to pick up on where your focus has been, any repetition. Let's say you're a big fan of, for example, Harry Styles, and you're like a mega fan. You think about him a lot, you focus on the music a lot, keeping up to date with news. Your reticular activating system is most likely to then pick up on evidence and examples of Harry Styles and pay attention to that. That's where your attention has been. That's what to you is a dominant focus and important. So before it can filter your 3D reality for evidence of that, to reflect it back to you and show you, oh, you've been thinking this and you've been assuming this. So here's an example in your 3D reality. Again, it needs a little bit of time to adjust to, this is the new story that has actually become dominant in my mind, and then your RAS filters to show you examples of that. So the movement can really stem from that, birds before land. Everything that you're going to see reflected, it needs a little bit of time. It's not magic where we click our fingers and suddenly we completely shift reality. So your dominant focus has to be in alignment with the new story, meaning your thoughts about your desire, your SP, yourself, your career, money, everything, whatever you're manifesting. And I don't mean all your thoughts have to be perfect, but at least about this topic, they should be positive, and you need to be aware of what's going on top of your mental diet, ready to go. When it becomes your dominant focus and aligns, I want to be with SP, and then you start thinking, I'm already with SP, this relationship is here, it's coming together perfectly as it's meant to be, it gets better and better by the day. Those kind of thoughts and that way of thinking becomes your dominant focus, whether it's repeating affirmations or it becomes already a new natural positive way of thinking. That has to line up in order for you to successfully create and bring in, well, when I say create, I mean in your own physical experience, you create this new reality, this new timeline, quantum jumping, if you will, into this reality where that's already in existence. That potential outcome is a literal potential reality for you to experience right now, and you choose it and you jump into that reality by keeping your dominant focus there. So it very much relies on your mental focus, self-awareness, mental clarity about what you want, why you want it, and how you know you can achieve it, as well as that internal alignment, your inner story, your inner conversations, the way you think to yourself, what's going on for you. No one else can see it, no one else can hear it, unless you're saying it out loud. But basically, yeah, how you go about your day and the quality of the thoughts that you're having. Are you spiraling and negatively reacting to your 3D reality? Or are you deciding, this is what I'm going to think, this is what I'm going to react to right now? That is all where the movement begins from. It cannot precede your actual thoughts. So yeah, just to highlight those shifts and that movement, especially towards the beginning, as you're just picking up that momentum, it always begins internally, and before it becomes external and reflected back to you, it can be very subtle. It can be quite slow, and not where you of course you can receive a text very quickly, receive some form of really positive communication very quickly, but usually it starts quite subtle, quite slow, so to speak. But that's not the time to immediately panic and think, oh, I'm not seeing it right now, therefore it's a failure, or, immediately jumping into a negative reaction. Just remember, when you first start and those internal changes are coming in and you're building on them day by day, hour by hour, with each bit of repetition, it can be a bit slow for it to reflect fully in your circumstances externally. Let it build, let it come in, because you need to stabilize what's going on internally with your inner story and inner conversations before the external is going to reflect that. But also remember, all of this, I'm not saying nothing happens and nothing works for a while. I'm saying it builds up bit by bit. So remember, if you're persisting, if you are putting in that effort, the movement is happening. So remind yourself as part of this process, yes, it might seem a bit complex emotionally and mentally, but it's simple. If you are persisting, if you're putting in the work, movement has to be happening. It is not possible by the law of assumption for you to be focusing on what you want, thinking positively, and your external circumstances to not shift in alignment with that. There's always something improving and working if you're putting in the effort. I also like to remind my clients and you guys in these videos that everything is already in existence. It's already been created. As I said earlier in the video, if you can focus on it, then it's already a potential outcome, a potential reality. It's something that is already there, ready for you to experience. You need to keep your focus on it and decide, this is the reality I want, therefore this is what I focus on now. I'm imagining it already being mine. I'm not going to focus on or worry about what's going on in current circumstances, because that is the outcome that I am building and bringing in for myself. So you really do not need to see it for it to be happening. It can very much and very oftentimes is behind the scenes. So I don't think that was grammatically correct, but you guys know what I mean. It's literally happening behind the scenes, even alongside, in tandem with, visible movement, with literal a bridge of events happening right in front of your eyes that you experience, whether it's an event, a conversation, whatever it may be. behind the scenes, things are still going. The ball is still rolling behind the scenes no matter what. As you sleep, movement is building, whether that's something within yourself, a circumstance starting to shift, the natural unfolding process coming together. I mean, there's millions of ways it can actually happen for any manifestation. And I know a lot of you guys watching are using this kind of for inspiration for manifesting an SP, manifesting a relationship. That's very, very common in the manifesting community. So ask yourself and remind yourself, why would you be privy to literally everything? Why would you be seeing every little bit of movement? That is not the way manifesting works. Literally in anything, even with like self-concept improvements. Yes, it's within yourself, but we're not aware of every little subconscious shift or saying, oh, I just recognize that emotion I felt is me shifting and now my self-concept has improved. Oh, and 5 seconds later, I just realized I improved again. It is quite subtle. It does build up over a little bit of time, and only then can you see the more full picture. As you build on this, those old patterns that maybe you held on to, or patterns of behavior in someone else even, and bad circumstances, they dissolve, they shift. Whatever needs to happen happens. We don't need to analyze and think, okay, here's a logical reaction that if I do X, the result will be Y, and this is what has to happen, or understanding all of that, the patterns, your own thought patterns, your own patterns of behavior, just everything that might fall under that specific context, as well as the actual circumstances outside your 3D reality, the caliber of circumstances in your life and relationships you have and everything. It all starts to dissolve and rearrange as it's supposed to. So when it looks like maybe things are silent and not moving, it's actually just your reality rearranging itself. It's things rearranging to reflect where your focus has been, reflect the circumstances that you have started to convince yourself that you actually do have. Because once you've put your focus on and selected the quantum reality that you actually want to experience, starts to materialize, but you're probably going to still see a little bit of that delay, a little bit of that old story filter out. Like I said, it's not an instant, clicking your fingers, an instant shift. So as you're still seeing that, ignore it, shift your focus, move your attention away, shift it back to the version of reality that you literally want to experience, because before it fully materializes, you are probably going to see a little bit of that still play out, filter out, come to the end of its life. But you want to make sure you're not going to get triggered and spiral and just hold on to that despite all the positive progress you have made. Remember that it's your own thoughts and feelings as well that are going to be a factor and a kind of a list of, a list of positive movement that you can tick off that list by saying, yes, my own thoughts and my own feelings are conforming. I actually do feel that when in hindsight, in retrospect, if I apply self-awareness and think, okay, where was I 3 days ago versus now, you'll be able to see that is movement itself. Every time that you apply the focus, you put in the effort with repetition, you go on with your manifestation routine and affirmations and just your mental focus on what it is that you want, you're teaching your subconscious mind how to think. You're teaching your subconscious mind what beliefs and assumptions and the way, well, not the way it works necessarily, but the content of your subconscious mind, it shifts. You're basically giving yourself, your own mind, new instructions. You're saying, nope, that old story, that old way of doing things, throw that manual out. Here's the new positive manual. This is what I believe. This is how I think, and this is how I react. So mentally embodying the new reality, just starting to convince and build up that this is my story, this is my reality, this is literally just how my life is. It's normal. I think this way now. I know SP and I have an amazing relationship. I know I have this perfect job. I know I'm so financially stable. I have no concerns, whatever it may be. You think from that, you mentally embody it as if it were true, and you don't come from this state of lack or desperation and checking your 3D and waiting to see, oh my gosh, will I be able to see something that I want to see? You create that. Like I said, it's the effect, not the cause. Because your mind doesn't even know the difference, you have to stay consistent with that story. It's going to accept what you tell it with repetition. Before all of those shifts become physical, it all happens internally. You have to trust that that unseen element is coming together, and that, everything internally is going to build up and literally become the physical result. So categorize it as behind the scenes movement. So when you're not seeing it, just say, okay, I know those birds before land. I know those bridge of events are building themselves, and I'm creating a stronger and stronger result every time I apply my repetition, every time I do my mental diet. Label it as something positive, reaffirm and kind of shift your perspective into aligning with the new story. It doesn't have to be logical, doesn't matter what other people might think, or if you think this sounds a bit delulu. If it sounds delulu, it's probably correct for manifestation. Double down on your repetition, on your affirmations, and that doesn't mean sitting all day, it just means being aware. When you need it, when you get triggered, when you negatively react, double down and loop those affirmations, loop that visual, do a little inner conversational mental diet in that moment. And because assumptions are everything, just assume that it's already done. Assume it's already here. And that gets built up. I'm not saying you say it and that it could potentially lead to a new belief suddenly being created. It needs a bit of repetition. That's how anything is learned by our minds. So double down on that repetition and keep telling yourself, I just assume it's done. I just know it's here. And keep telling your mind that. So hold on to that new state, that new mental focus of already having your desire, already thinking as if it were here. You don't need to believe it yet. The belief will come, but that is what the key element is. Shifting into that new story, reaffirming that it's already yours, not judging the 3D because you can't see tons of amazing movement yet.